So in therapy Monday night, I'm tearing at my nails. Like digging in with my thumbnail and just like ripping back the nail, just like digging in on the sides and keep going like this, and eventually you get a groove in there, and then the whole thing just like shreds. And I thought I'd given up this bad habit in early high school, but first time in a long time that I remember doing this. So I was talking about my father, and I knew I was doing a bad habit, but the anxiety was so high that I had to destroy something. So it's my nail. And my therapist said to me, I want you to just take this in. Your father chose your dying mother over you. Your father chose your stepmother over you. Your father chose his religion over you. Your father chose his career over you. Your father pawned you off to friends to take care of when he didn't feel like he could take care of you. Your father doesn't want you to show up when he speaks because he's so ashamed of you. How does that feel? And I felt like some tinglings of anger, just like little tinglings. But I don't feel that much, I tell her, because he's dead to me. So my therapist says, your live father is so painful for you to deal with. But you've made him dead. I thought that was kind of a good point. That instead of like struggling with the relationship or working on the relationship, I've just declared him dead to me. And that's a pattern I do with a lot of people. Like, I really don't like negotiating relationships. I guess all relationships depend on negotiation. So I guess I perhaps don't have that many relationships because I don't like to bargain and work things out and work on friendships, relationships. So I think I just dismiss people and say, they're dead to me, when it gets too confrontive or too awkward. So maybe I'm just taking the easy way out and saying my father's dead to me. Like, that's so easy. That's so easy to say. Like, my father's dead to me. It's just like...
Do you ever miss him?
Yeah, and I want to make this interactive, so thank you. I don't ever recall having a conversation with my father. Like, it feels like they were all...
Show me a typical moment between you two. How would he lecture you?
instructions.
Be your father.
So, I know you're reading about Rousseau.
Do it up to us. So we're Luke.
I know you're reading about Rousseau. So, did you know that he fathered countless children and pawned them off on an orphanage because he didn't want to be bothered by raising his kids? Did you know that he caused misery to everyone who got close to him?
Does he wait for an answer?
Yeah, but I'm not. He's not. My father is not a brick wall. So if I say something,
What would you say to him?
Necessarily,
About
I would say, yeah, I know about that.
Why is he telling you this?
Because he knows I'm reading about Rousseau, so he wants to bond with me. So he goes and reads
But what does the kid think he's
a
saying?
bunch of books on
The
Rousseau.
kid doesn't know that he's trying to bond.
Yeah, I understand he's trying to bond with me.
You do.
So I think, yeah, it's kind of cool. And this is the relationship that I have with my father. It's not a normal...
So is there bonding?
There is some bonding, because we're both talking about Rousseau.
What do you say?
I'm not saying a lot, because I realize I don't know as much about Rousseau as my father does. And there's definitely a feeling of bonding, and there's my mother kind of seeing us bond, and she's happy about it. She goes, you know, your father spent several hours today reading on Rousseau just because you were reading a book on Rousseau. And we were doing that up until age 22. And then I went away to
So was it always academic?
Yeah, it was always intellectual. It was always intellectual.
What do you wish he would have said to you? Or what kind of conversations?
I can't even imagine it, because I just never had an experience of a conversation that was separate from him instructing me. So that's the only...
What kind of relationship would you want to have with your son? Based on what you know.
Well, once he turns an adult, so sometime between 16 and 21, I'd like it to primarily be like a friend type of relationship. Like prior to then, I understand I need to be the father.
Which would be what? Doing what? Saying what?
Providing stability and teaching right and wrong.
How would you teach him that?
I would raise him within a traditional religious community, a traditional Jewish community.
But how do you tell him what's right and what's wrong? How would you communicate that?
We'd study Torah together. We'd listen to Torah lectures.
And what if he became a
synagogue.
Seventh-day Adventist?
And if my son became a Seventh-day Adventist or a Buddhist, it would be very painful. But I would recognize the irony and the humor in it. I hear that when people get older and have kids, they treat them more like pets. And I kind of see that.
As a positive or a negative?
Probably more negative than...
Because you love pets unconditionally.
Okay.
But that it's a thing?
Like young parents, like in their 20s, they seem so consumed by parenting. And parents in their late 40s and 50s, they're not nearly as consumed by
Or
parenting.
as neurotic?
Or as neurotic. Yeah. They're much more relaxed about it. And
So why not have a pet? Do you have a pet?
no, I don't have a pet.
Are you afraid of becoming a father?
I don't believe I'm afraid of becoming a father. I'd be afraid to become a father in my present financial condition.
Are you afraid of being your father as a father?
I'm afraid of being my father, period.
Are you afraid it might come out?
I know it will come out, but it's not a disabling fear. It's not the reason I haven't married and had kids. But my father had no time for his parents. I don't remember anything positive that he said about his parents, except that his father was a reader of books. But my father did not attend the funerals of his parents. I think because he lived in a different country. So I'm kind of struck by that similarity. And yet my sister is so seemingly close, and just so admiring of my father. And yet my brother and I are so distant, and we just don't have the first clue how to have a conversation with our father. Like, you call up, talk about the weather, a little about politics, how your business is doing, how's the health for either one of us, and what books are you reading, and you pretty much run out.
How do you say goodbye?
Sounds like you're doing well, or I hope your foot gets better. I'll have to check out that book. Thanks for the encouragement. Thanks for the tips.
How do you feel when you hang up?
Like I fulfilled an obligation.
No connection.
No connection.
Empty.
Well, there has to be some connection between I consider him dead and feeling, like I've simply met an obligation, or sad at how disconnected we are, telling myself I don't want to be like that.
Is there anything you want to resolve before he dies with him? Or say to him? Or hopes he would say to you?
Well, he's told my mother that he feels like a failure, particularly as a father, particularly to us two boys. So that would be really interesting to hear from him, because he never speaks much about his failures to us boys, anyway. So I don't regard him as a failure as a father, because he's produced 3 law-abiding, productive citizens. And I think he provided the most important things that I needed: stability and right and wrong.
Do you love him?
I mean, there's got to be some love in there somewhere. Yeah.
Any last thoughts?
I just think it'd be an interesting conversation if he was to say, "I think I failed you as a father." Not because it's true, but just because that would be a rare admission of weakness, and maybe it'd be like the cracking of an egg, and who knows what would spill out.
So if you want to, you can write that scene, this dialogue between you two, just to see
Yeah.
what would happen.
Yeah. Great. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Do you want any feedback?
Sure. What people are interested in,
Okay.
what takes you in, what you'd like to know more about.
Okay. So everything that you were talking about, I did want to see the actual scenes. I want to see how he says he doesn't want you to show up, and what happens when you do,
Right.
what that shame is. And then I did find it touching just to hear how there's kind of a polite dance of wanting to say the right thing to each other.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to know, what's going on the inside when you're saying that. And anytime you want to write from his point of view, what is it like for him to talk to you?
Yeah.
And also, your father spent 3 hours today reading Rousseau so he could talk to you.
Yeah.
So the ways, because of who he is, his limitations of how he shows love.
Yeah.
So those things check me out. Any other comments?